In my book, I actually go into the fact that it is the superheating of the atmosphere, the superheating of the ionosphere, and it is these nuclear detonations that is responsible for the ozone hole. And it's not CFCs and the McDonald's cartons. CFCs are a contributing factor to problems in the ozone, but CFC molecule is 3 times heavier than air. It doesn't rise, it sinks. So if CFCs got up there, it's because of nuclear detonations on the Earth. It's to do with the upswing from rockets when they're taking off and going up there. They drag the dust up there and take the CFCs there. And CFCs have been an agricultural problem for many years. But the real contributing factor to the hole in the ozone layer, now nicely covered up, is in fact the superheating of the ionosphere by microwave technology and detonations up there. Now HAARP is very important in this scenario because it has been specifically designed to try and break through the Stargate. It's pretty much an analogy can be used of a burglar. Any type of burglar who's trying to penetrate through a security fence, the idea is to put a dummy wire situation. You connect a dummy wire here and a dummy wire here to break the circuit, and then you can cut the main fence and leave yourself a portal to go through. Now of course you don't go up to the ionosphere with a pair of pliers or a hacksaw, but what you can do is try to break the Stargate and open a portal by way of lasers and microwave technology. Microwave technology is created in Alaska, it's all tested, then they mount it onto satellites which help to create a beam either on the moon or out into outer space. And by beaming these high frequency microwave beams onto the Stargate, they're hoping to break through, and as yet they have not been successful. Now all its combined transmitters send 3.6 million watts of radio frequency output. Jerry Smith, in his book HAARP, The Ultimate Weapon of the Conspiracy, writes, HAARP has a unique feature, a patented ability to focus these transmissions into a single point high in the sky. This magnifies an output of 1,000 times, giving HAARP an effective radiated power in excess of 3.6 billion watts. So HAARP is normally, when it's on Earth, about 3.6 million watts, which is, by the way, almost 1 million times more powerful than the documents at its inception say it needed to be. So it's millions of times. Nick Bajik will admit this, the man who uncovered the HAARP agenda in his book, Angels Don't Play This HAARP, and so on. He also is confounded by this, because not knowing what the real use of HAARP is and thinking it's just a military device, cannot explain how it is 1 million times more powerful than it ever could possibly need to be for military purposes. Well, it's very easy to explain. There's no mystery once you understand what the agenda is, the real agenda. But as Smith is saying here, HAARP can be focused so that it even has so much more power than that. 3.6 billion watts is actually its full potential. He says, the signal will be sent to the top of our atmosphere where it is intended to heat a portion of the sky. This type of transmitter is called an ionospheric heater. There are several ionospheric heaters in use around the world today. HAARP, however, will be many times more powerful than all of them combined. Now, Richard Allen Miller and Iona Miller in the Nexus magazine, volume 10, in their interview say, researcher Guy Kramer has suggested that HAARP array may be used to bounce deadly signals off the ionosphere and moon to target sites on Earth and with major explosions, virtually eliminating the need for tactical nuclear weapons. And there's no denying that, yes, the lower level people involved in this, the lower level military people who are not privy to the main agenda, that's what the beauty of a pyramid is, are working on it happily because they think, yes, this is a perfect weapon, and oh, we won't need SDI and we won't need all of these other clunking military apparatus. Let's just have HAARP and we can incinerate people all over the planet. It's the super weapon. How wonderful. It'll be just like a video game. Right, they think that. But what's the real agenda, the real power? The 3 billion watt signal originating in Alaska can be caroomed off the moon to reach virtually everywhere on the planet, on the surface or underground with heat radiation. Since it does not leave contamination, it can even terminate targets covertly. But guess what? HAARP is funded by Arco Corporation, which is owned by, oh, guess who? The British Queen Elizabeth. Arco connotes the word archon, which means fallen angel. That's right. We have to look at the subliminal way that we're being told things. It's very important to open your symbolic literacy. So Atlantic Richfield Corporation Company, etc., that's its official meaning, but there's another meaning beside that. Anyone who's done their homework, who knows the ancient magical languages of the ancient world, knows and recognizes the word archo. It comes from the word archon, which means the fallen angels, or the intelligence of the fallen angels. Just like we looked at earlier, the cosmocrates, those who are the angelic beings who overlook the cities and the rituals of the world. HAARP is also used for several other reasons. One of the most important is to trap incoming UFOs. It's very important to note this, that many of the UFOs that visit our planet, you can come through the semi-permeable membrane of the Stargate. So the elites on this planet realize, listen, we're having problems for hundreds and hundreds of years trying to vacate the planet. What would happen if we could create a web-like frequency, microwave frequency, that could in fact trap and down other UFOs incoming? Then, if we were able to down them successfully, we'd be able to loot those ships and find out how they work, and perhaps even use those very ships, once we know how they work, to get out of here. That's another scenario. If I was them, I'd probably be thinking that as well. And that's what Roswell and a lot of the other crashes are all about, because it's a little bit too much of a stretch of the imagination, is it not, to think that spaceships that can cross hyperspace, cross the event horizons of suns, fly throughout the universe, then just happen to suddenly career and caroom out of control as soon as they enter into our atmosphere. And Richard Hoagland and others have even got footage showing that there are Earth agencies shooting some set of rays to incoming craft. This has actually been videotaped by NASA. The idea is to trap one of these like a fly in the middle of the air and try to bring it down. And in most cases it doesn't work. But there has been cases in which it has worked. And these ships have been downed. Military have been on the spot in a few minutes. And these entities and beings that are in these ships have been taken away to Area 51 and to other locations to be debriefed. And the ships, of course, their technology will be studied thoroughly in order to assist humans to vacate the planet.
And what of this counter-explanation to NASA's ice crystal theory by Dr. Jack Kasher of Nebraska State University?
At least 5 proofs that the objects were not ice particles, therefore spacecraft, and they were either extraterrestrial or terrestrial.
But one of the other most important aspects of HAARP was to create the possibility for mass mind control. With HAARP and these radio frequencies and radiotronic weaponry mounted on the satellites, mind control on a mass scale becomes much more easy. And the term that is technically used for that type of behavior, control, or mind control is entrainment. And in Jerry Smith's book, which is an excellent book, you can read about the actual power of HAARP in that matter. And Jerry Smith is getting his information from one of the leading lights in this kind of study, Jim Keith. He was, of course, assassinated. The great scholar Jim Keith, in his book Mass Control, is one of the leading researchers on the subject of mind control. Goes into the history of Dr. Jose Delgado that we mentioned earlier, a fine scholar in this particular field. And he talks about entrainment. Now, fitting into our 4 scenarios, of course, if scenario 2 was to take place, which means that the Nephilim, the progeny, realize they're not going anywhere. They cannot leave here, so they're stuck with it. They've got all the technology, but they ain't going anywhere. Then they start to rule and reign openly. There's no more covert action, there's no more secret societies, no more hidden government. They come out into the open, and they need to make, because their numbers are few, they need to make use of this kind of technology to control everyone. In Northern Ireland, it's a simple gun to the head situation, which is the most primitive way you can do it, to control the whole of the population there. But there's different kinds of weaponry for a country of this size or for the world in general. Now, Richard Allen Miller and Iona Miller in their Nexus magazine interview say, for epochs, Schumann resonances have provided the orchestrating pulse for life on this planet, our planetary heartbeat, which sets the tempo for health and well-being. But now the very heart of the planet is in jeopardy, according to Framework Convention on Climate Change. ELF, that's extra low frequencies, from Schumann resonance are intimately linked with those of brain waves, natural or artificially induced changes in the Schumann resonance could affect the subtle and perhaps gross brain wave generation. Liquid crystals, which are DNA, brain ventricles, and cellular structures, in the human body may operate as antennae for detecting and decoding such global and local ELF signals. So let's be in no doubt from what these researchers are saying. Our body is an electromagnetic antenna. Should there be any fluctuation not only in the normal Earth energies, but should those be influenced or precipitated by external interference, the human body will respond dramatically and almost instantly. There is an harmonic relationship between the Earth and our mind-body. Earth's low-frequency isoelectric field, the magnetic field of the Earth, and the electrostatic field that emerges from our bodies are closely interwoven. Our internal rhythms interact with external rhythms, affecting our balance, our REM patterns, and mental focus. Schumann resonance waves probably help regulate our body's internal clock, affecting sleep and dream patterns, arousal patterns, and hormonal secretion. Environmental rhythm, the fundamental driving system for all life on our small blue planet, is jeopardized by human manipulation of the ionosphere, such as HAARP. 90 Russian deputies signed an appeal against the HAARP program, charging that the experiments would create weapons capable of breaking radio communication lines and equipment installed on spaceships and rockets, could provoke serious accidents in electricity networks and in oil and gas pipelines, and have a negative impact on the mental health of people populating entire regions. Some researchers are speculating that the entrainment process has already happened or is being dabbled in, and that's why there's a rising levels of depression and delinquency in our world that cannot be normally explained in any other way. Jim Keith was certainly a big believer that this entrainment process has already begun in certain regions of the world. Now in the book of Enoch, we read, "And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones." And this whole campaign against nature is central stage in this whole scenario. From the earliest times, certainly from the post-Diluvian epochs that we were looking at, right down to the present day. The whole extent of this crime against the planet, we can read here. Ecologists fear that we are losing between 50 and 150 species each day, a rate thousands of times higher than the evolutionary background extinction rate of about 1 species a year. Some estimate that we have lost perhaps 600,000 species since the biotic holocaust began around 1950. This one caption, this one statement, basically tells us the whole gig. In 1 year, just 1987, we have this vast expenditure on what? Technology and military. But yet every program of the United Nations, they're all screaming for money and let's heal the world, but we can't get round to it. We just don't know how we can crack it. I don't know how backwards you have to be to not see what the problem is, what the agenda is. $900+ billion is spent on military budgets a year worldwide, with 50% of that spent by the US. The Pentagon spent $9,000 per second before the 9/11 attack. The percentage of US military spending that would ensure the essentials of life to everyone in the world, according to the United Nations, is a mere 10% of that. That's about $40 billion, which was in fact the amount of funding initially requested to fund our retaliatory attack on Afghanistan. Now coming to the whole question, the ongoing pursuit of getting out of here, you may build your technology back to the place where you had it 50,000 years ago when you crossed space. You may have those UFOs, and those UFOs are being sighted from Mexico, all over the world, from Australia. Individuals in our modern world are seeing constant evidence. There's plenty of traffic in the sky to prove that there's UFO activity, even though we're being duped into thinking it's true extraterrestrials visiting our planet. We're not aware yet, as I advocate, that these are Earth ships